Hey guys, good afternoon. How are you all doing? We are like 5 minutes, 7 minutes to be exact. We are 7 minutes late, so we apologize for that. One of our guests, Calmero, said we are running on St. Martin time. Is it safe for me to say we're running on Caribbean time? So we're 7 minutes late, and again, I apologize for that. First of all, today is actually our eighth episode. I cannot believe we've been doing gaffing for the past 8 weeks. And I must say thank you to each and every one of you who continue to tune in and support Gaffing from the first episode up until now. And my desire is to gain your support continuously as we continue with the COVID series and everything that happens after the COVID series. So basically everything we do after COVID series. Since COVID series, we have been really and truly highlighting the the different aspects of sectors that were impacted by COVID, how things were before and how we transition into a new reality. I think it's safe for me to say that, right? A new reality. And how are we still being shifted around? Okay. So we have done, I'm not going to say all of them. We have spoken about agriculture, education, self-care, the elderly, mental illness, very, very detailed. And here this is the third episode where we are really and truly just highlighting the various aspects when it comes to displacement of persons who are laid off from their work, persons who are laid off and home and have to still maintain their quote unquote normal budget. And at the same time, they are not earning as they are accustomed of earning. And then last episode, we had Dominique. Well, first of all, 2 episodes ago, everyone would have remembered Erica, would have remembered Sharika. You would have also remembered James. Last episode, we brought in Terrence Ray, who's an economist, and we also blended that gaff, with Dominique Hodge, who was also laid off in the height of COVID. However, she did not just say, oh my God, what am I going to do? And scratch her hair. You know, what she did was after a week, she decided, hey, I'm uncomfortable. Let me do something about this. And all the plans Dominique had from the past several years, she decided to just run with it, start a pop-up business right there and then. And she started her popsicle business, right? So this is the idea. The idea is for us to understand where we are or where we were first, the manner in which we existed, the manner in which we earn our money, whether it be our personal business or it being employed. And the height of COVID, we were transitioned into most persons, not everyone, but most persons were transitioned into being laid off. However, as I mentioned, their finances, their expenses rather, remain the same. So what does that really call for? So today will be the third episode where we'll be really stressing on the economy, economics, finance, and budgeting, right? Because from all of these talks, we have realized that we need to better understand our money. Not, oh, I have $1, but how are you spending that dollar? How are you managing your finances? First of all, do you even understand what your expenses are? How are you, my earring fell off. How are you really managing all of that? You know? So this is what these talks are really and truly about. How do we manage our finances? I'm just gonna leave this off right here until I'm able to fix it, right? So how do we really and truly manage our finances moving forward? All right. So today's talk, we will be speaking to today's gaff, we'll be speaking to two persons, Betty Arundel and Emilio Calmera. Let me first talk about Betty. Betty and I have known Betty for the past, I think about 12 years. For the past 12 years, I've known Betty. I was not personally introduced to her, nor was she personally introduced to me. But when I worked at my former job, I like to call it when I worked in an institutionalized environment, right? Which basically is a 9 to 5. So when I worked at the 9 to 5, my 9 to 5, I would always go to the culture center, and there I would order whether it be breakfast or lunch from Betty. And for me, Betty does not only sell food, Betty sells health. She sells enhancement of health. How do you really take care of yourself? The manner in which we self-care, the nutritions we take part in, what we feed our body with. For me personally, that's what Betty sells. Good health. Why I say this? Because she has a variety when it comes to her food, right? So you have the regular food, and you also go into the platters, the vegan platters, the veggie for persons who really want to go towards eating, quote unquote, what we consider to be healthier. And also, she has a very good way of how she priced her stuff. So reach the budget of everyone from $5.50 for food up until the higher end food. The reason why I'm saying all of this is because this is how I personally know Betty. So this is over 12 years. And I really and truly believe Betty needed to be on this gaff today, because for me, she's a prime example, and she also perfectly exemplify what resilience is in the height of disasters and also in regular circumstances. So we will be able to speak to Betty more. Betty, would you mind just saying hello to all our viewers? If you can hear, remember, Betty, to unmute your mic, please.
Yeah, it's on mute.
Yes, you're good now.
Yes, I am.
So if Betty, if you mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how long you've been doing your business, just in less than 2 minutes, please.
From a very young girl, I loved cooking. I grew up where we did everything in the kitchen, so it was something that I loved from, I would say, 9, 10 years old. And that has been my passion until now. I believe that if something is your passion, you never get tired. You always reinvent yourself because it's your passion. And I'm from St. Martin, born in Aruba, but I'm a St. Martiner. And food is my passion. I have 3 kids, 3 grown-ups, and I believe that it's their passion too, in different ways. But that's it. Food is my passion.
Thank you so much for that, Betty. Thank you. So now we move on. Well, first of all, you all saw me last episode of GAF where I wore my glasses right through, right? And now I'm about to put it on. The reason why is in order for me to read properly or to see well, I really and truly need to put my glasses on. So here I am. So our next guest on gaffing today is no other than Emilio Calmera. We read a short bio of Emilio because it's so deep, it's so full of depth. Emilio Calmera is widely known as one of the foremost experts on personal financial management and planning on St. Martin. His extensive experience and knowledge gained through over 10 years of combined study and living experiences, banking services, financial policy advising, and investing across the United States, Canada, the Netherlands, and England has fueled quest to help individuals achieve their highest level of success. Emilio Calmera is a catalyst for change through compelling evidence, humor, which is necessary. In all of this, we definitely need a sense of humor. Humor, accelerated learning, guided next steps, global perspective, and emotional connection. So for persons who are listening, who are tuned in right now, before before Emilio takes the mic, I would definitely want to reiterate something. You would have heard what I just read about his bio, right? When we think of finance, we usually think, oh my God, like we need to be so stush, so serious. But he adds to this whole platform a sense of humor, a sense of emotional connection. And all of this is what helps to make his connections to people in which he interacts with on a daily basis even more real, because as we would know, human connection is what matters. So we can have all the accolades, but if we are not able to connect better connect with our humans, our equals, then we basically fail. Emilio, you introduce yourself, add something more on what I've already added, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I think one of the mics on from Betty, I think.
Betty, do you mind putting your audio on mute?
Good.
Yes, I think we're good.
So, hi, everyone. Of course, my name again is Emilio Calmera. I'm currently working by government as a senior financial policy advisor. I also handle the budgeting aspect of government as well. Oversee that process. Also, all the financial consequences of government, we also review and give advice on as well. I've been doing that for a number of years, I think over 10 years. In between, I also worked in the banking sector, and I also work in the housing sector. I also do a lot of investing on stock market and so forth as well. Also invested in Canada, Belize, and so forth. And so that's what I do. My passion is actually not even finance; it's actually flying, by the way. Most people don't know that, but my passion is flying and not really finance. I got into finance because at the time when I was going to study, the pilot program was not funded by scholarships. So I took the cheapest way out, which was finance. But I realized it was not my passion, but I read so far into it, it didn't make any sense to stop. So I continued in it. And I came out of college and university with more questions than answers because as a kid, I used to break apart my gifts. Like I used to get remote control vehicles, stuff like that. I used to break them apart to figure out how they work. And so, because of these questions that I had, I could not figure out how the financial system really worked. And the questions keep coming up, the professors couldn't answer them. So eventually, I decided after finishing university to go to unlearn and then relearn, and what I learned basically shocked me, and now I came to understand why a lot of those teaching was never given in school. So I'm gonna share some of that with you guys today, and hopefully we can get through because we're starting late, so I might have to skip some of the stuff.
Thank you so much, Emilio, for that. And I think it's very intriguing that your passion is not even finance, but you're so versed with it. You're so versed, so full of depth, and the manner in which you exemplify your knowledge in such a basic layman terms, where you're able to always reach there's a common man as well as the persons that in the higher levels. And I think that the diversity that you exude is what is allowing us right now to have this gap in the first place. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that. So as I said in my introduction, what we are continuing to focus on is how are we coping in the height of COVID? What is the state of our economy? So, Emilio, without further ado, Terence touched base on it very deeply last week, but now we want to reiterate and even have a different perspective that you can provide. What is our current state of our economy? And because, even though we're in St. Martin, because we have a regional viewership, how can you make how can you allow us to better understand holistically what this pandemic means and how is it really and truly affecting our economy?
Um, Before I touch into that, you need to understand one thing though. This particular COVID-19 is basically, let me put it like this: the financial situation would have come, even though COVID would not have come in the way that it did. So we was already on a collision course. It's just that COVID-19 sped up the whole, inevitable. And if you look at the history, you will realize, I think I have some stats here. It says that the banking crisis of 2008, 2009, about 9 million people in America lost jobs. And then in the 1930s, which was the biggest depression that there were, about 12 million Americans lost jobs in that depression. In the COVID-19, the number of Americans seeking unemployment benefits today is at plus 40 million. So you can see here, this is a big problem. Because in the 1930s depression, which was considered one of the worst depressions in the world, only around 12 million Americans lost jobs. Why I use America, most of us are dependent on America for our bread and butter. That's where most people tourism market is concentrated in America. And if you have plus 40 million Americans seeking unemployment benefits, you know we're in for a long ride. And so you need to understand that to make yourself more resilient, you have to be more looking at the local situation. Oftentimes we allow foreign companies to come in, and that causes everything to be imported and so forth. But now we've seen how that's beginning to pose a big problem. So in my presentation, I will touch a bit on some of those aspects, talking about why local can be very beautiful,
Mm.
and why we actually have to also look at something called complementary currencies in order not to get messed up in the world of dollars and euros.
Uh, I cannot wait for us to really dive into your presentation, because I really believe, as I keep reiterating it, I really and truly believe our community, not the St. Martin community, but our regional community really need to, number one, understand the state of our economy and the manner in which we would respond to our economy right now. How can we function? And I love what you said to close your statement just now. We need to be able to focus on local and understand that local is also beautiful. And that's where Betty comes in. Last gaffing, the last episode of gaffing, we had Dominic Hodge, as I mentioned. Dominic was laid off not due to COVID, but in the height of COVID. And she just decided after a week, you know what? I can't do this. I have to find something to do. She started her own pop-up popsicle business, right? Betty really and truly, for me, exemplifies this platform. Betty, would you be able to just tell us a little bit of your journey? When did you start? When did you start this journey of being um, of your restaurant, your cooking, and where you are right now? When was it all started, and how did you start?
I started at home, going on the road, selling it from my car, and I started from 83, and then I built a small snack bar in my mom's yard. I
Mm,
did that for a couple of years, and then I decided to go back to school at 28.
mm,
And when I came back, I continued in that small snack bar, and I had my kids. But the toughest part is when Lewis came and everything was smashed, and I had to
come again.
go around in my car and start up again. So there's always something that makes you stop, make you start again. But
Mm,
going around to the hotels and where we had timeshare and meeting people and selling to people from the car when the economy was down, I think that was the biggest learning experience for me,
mm,
because every day you had to get up and do the same thing. Cook the food, make the sandwiches, make soups, put it in your car and go to different offices, pick the kids up, come back, go to Rams, stay in your kitchen late at night, make preparation, do it all over the other day. And that was survival for me.
mm.
And I never came like work though. It always came like you had to continue, you had to just grow every day, just be consistent, doing the same thing every day, no matter what.
And
It's,
let, if I can ask you, just so persons who are viewing they can understand, when you started, what was your finances? Did you have thousands of dollars? What was your finance really like when you started your business? And for persons, you would have heard what Betty said. She started making sandwiches from home and selling from her car. What was your finances like then when you started?
I barely had finance at that time. I remember going to my mother and borrowing money from her to be able to start up. So there wasn't anything about finance because everything was closed. I mean, it was a very rough time at that time. From the minute that I started, it was small money. I had to ask my mom. for a startup. That's how I started. But I learned quite early that the money that I made was not mine.
Mm.
And even then, I couldn't pay myself a salary, but you maybe take $20. But
Mm.
I understood quite early on in the game, or when I was doing it, that it had to go back into the business. You know, you couldn't go out and just spend at will
Mm.
because it's the business money, not yours. And
I
I think that is something that is surprising because if you spend the money, then you really can't buy stuff over to continue when you start with such a small budget. And I think that's where a lot of us go wrong.
I I I see Camero. He's agreeing on that point. Would you like to add to that? Because I think that is very key, especially in today's society. We need to really understand, even though we're the ones who are starting the business, the money is not yours. The business is an entity by itself, while you are an entity by itself. So, Camero, would you mind adding to that, please?
Sure. I laugh because I had a friend of mine. I got to, she wasn't a friend at the time. I got to know her very well. And she's a taxi driver. And she came to me with help because she had some problems with, with managing her funds or whatever. So one of the things I showed her, I said, if you run in a taxi, and I notice you like when you get the money from the clients, you go buy this and you buy that for your kids or whatever. I said that's not the way you do it. I say the taxi, the first person that gets paid is actually the taxi, not you. So if you made $40 on a trip, on a tour, the actually you have to put aside maybe $20 for the bus or $30 for the bus, and maybe you could go with the $10. But every time you always have to pay the bus first because the bus is what's generating the income for you. If the bus breaks down, you have to have that money available to fix the tires or shocks or whatever. And she never used to do that. So she would
Mm.
collect the 40 and maybe put some gas in it, and then the rest she would spend it. And I
Mm.
said, that's not the way you do it. So in a business, for example, and Betty said it right, when you make your money, you have to allocate the funds back to the inventory to buy the goods and whatever and so forth. So you have to be very meticulous when it comes to administration so you can know what you can spend and what you can't spend. If you don't administrate it, you would never know. So you would actually tap into the business funds instead of tapping into the net that is, whatever net is available is for you
Mm.
after you cover your expenses. And most people that actually tap into their monies that is actually meant to replace inventory, stock, and those type of things. And that's a big problem I've seen with small businesses.
And I think that's a very key thing for us to really and truly continue to ir- reiterate, right? Because especially now in in our current circumstances, you will see a lot of startups, and some of them will start and they will just vanish in thin air, and some of them will feel, okay, I have money, so I can spend and I can splurge. But if you really maintain it, you'll be like a Betty, for instance. Over the years, you become consistent and you continue to excel in that craft over time. But if you don't manage that money properly, you spend, as you said, your client who's a taxi driver, that person was spending thinking it's their own money. So based on your presentation, let's just hear a bit more based on your presentation so we can just dive right into it.
Okay, so because of the time, what we'll do, normally my presentation style is usually I like to give it the shocking information, history, shocking information, and then get into the budgeting aspect. But due to time, I will give a small little introduction and then go straight into the budgeting. And
Okay.
if we do have time, I will continue with the other aspect of the whole thing as well. So that will be my approach to today.
Okay, that's fine. So you can go ahead. You can
To go
start.
ahead.
I
I
can.
need to share my screen though.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Oh, disable, you have to engage me to share the screen, I think.
Let me see. Kishana. Okay. I'm here calling my sister. Please
It's
share.
telling me who's disabled participant screen sharing.
1 minute. Let me see. 1 minute. Oh, yeah. Okay. You see it now?
Okay,
Yeah.
good, good,
Okay.
good, good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, let me know if you can see the screen.
Yes, it's there.
Okay, so here we go. So basically the presentation was titled Relocalization to Building Safe Harbor. So It's all about local, and I have a very strong local type of team in it.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, let's break the ice. I'm gonna give two different animals: a panda and a squirrel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, which one would you choose, Keoma, if you had to make a choice?
I would choose a squirrel. I don't know why, but I would choose a squirrel.
Okay, so hopefully, if we get through the presentation, I will give you my thoughts on that.
Okay.
So it says that money is to people as water is to fish.
Mm.
And you need to understand this because the last beings to comprehend the nature of water are fish. And
Mm.
so are humans when it comes to money, right?
Yeah.
And fish would be swimming oblivious in the water. And then if you poison the water, the self won't even know until it's too late. And that's the situation with money as well. Money has over the time has become corrupted to some extent, and has caused a number of it's causing a number of problems throughout the whole world. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why the whole world is practically in the same situation everywhere else. Now, no social system has ever looked forward and said, this is where they are going. Okay. They cannot normally think outside of that social institution. So you will find that people usually do not think outside of the box. They was taught a certain way. And so they maybe, carry on that tradition and don't question certain things. This was said by the gentleman called Jack Fresco. And I put up a nice little cartoon that says, "Never ever think outside the box." So you're telling the cat that, right? As a joke. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how it all started for me is when I started to question a lot. One of the things I saw was this particular picture. Why I putting it up is to reflect. And so when I saw it, I wanted to figure out, why is this little guy suffering and why there's, I just wanted to figure out who took the picture and why.
Mm.
And then it says this picture was taken by the late give me a second there. Yeah, by the late Kevin Carter.
Okay.
He was born September 13, 1960 in Johannesburg, and he died July 27, 1994. He actually killed himself. He committed suicide. And he committed suicide at the age of 33. And he left a suicide note, and the suicide note read, "I am depressed without phone, money for rent, money for child support, money for debts," and he's screaming money. He said, "I'm haunted by the vivid memories of killings and corpses and anger and pain, of starving or wounded children, of trigger-happy madmen, often police, of killer executioners." And he went on to say, "I have gone to join Ken, if I'm that lucky." Ken was his dog.
Mm.
So this is my reflection. And this is what I do. This is part of what I do, why I do it. Now in Second Peter, it says, "His divine power has given to us all things that pertain to life and godliness." So when I read this, I say, okay, indeed, the world is such abundance. One seed, if planted, can grow a tree. That tree can grow fruits, and the many fruits can happen. The process can repeat again. If you look at all the number of fruits and vegetables out there, the world is such abundance. So my question was, why are we suffering? You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
those are some of the things I started to reflect on, and then I started my journey to try to understand certain things. But then one of the things we need to understand the term community, and the community is very important to understand the problems that we are having. Now, the definition of community says is a group of interacting people, possibly living in close proximity, and often refers to a group that shares, keep underline the word shares, some common values, and is attributed with social cohesion. This is very important when it comes to economic shocks and so forth, that we have this cohesion. Okay, within a shared geographical location, generally in social units larger than a household. So this is a definition from Wikipedia. And then the origin of the word community, where does it come from? Community comes from the Latin munus, which means the gift,
Mm-hmm.
and come, which means together among each other. So when you talk about partner hand and susu, very much so, you realize that it's a community thing, right? So
Yes.
community literally means to give among each other. Therefore, I define my community as a group of people who welcome and honor my gifts, and from whom I can reasonably expect to receive gifts in return. This is a definition from Bernard Lieta.
Mm-hmm.
Now, economy. And I like to give definitions so we know when we talk about economy what we are talking about. It says the word economy comes from the Greek word okinovia, which means one who manages a household. And that's strange because most people would not think that. At first origin, this might seem peculiar, but in fact, a household and economies have much in common. So in essence, if every citizen in a country managed their household properly, it will make the job of government much more easier, and your society would strive, right?
I agree.
And then economics now is defined as the social science that analyzes the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. And of course, again, the term economics comes from the ancient word oikonomia again,
Mm-hmm.
means management of a household, administration. And people don't like administration, but that's what the word means, you know? And it says, hence the rules of the house and so forth. Now, judging from the definitions, it would appear that managing production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services among a cohesive group is fundamental. In other words, reciprocal trading among each other is central. Okay, so let me skip some stuff here quick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me get to this thing here. So now, what is the basis of an integrated community? An integrated community is very important because when you get knocked off from the outside world, as we are now with COVID, your community now is very important, and the social cohesion among them is very important. So it says the basis of an integrated community is one, local production, locally consumed, and using local money.
Mm.
Okay. Now, when you start to disintegrate, is when you start to use remote production. So you import almost everything like what we do in St. Martin. We consume it. So that remote production, we locally consume it, as well as we use remote money, like in this case the dollar or the euros or whatever the case is. That's how it started to disintegrate. Now, there was this gentleman by the name of, as I say his name just now, he says, when the division of labor has been once thoroughly established, is but a very small part of man's wants, which the produce of his own labor can supply. He supplies the far greater part of them by exchanging what the surplus part of the produce of his own labor, which is over and above his own consumption, for such parts of other men's labor as he has occasion for. I explain that in a bit. And he says, every man thus lives by exchanging or becomes in some measure a merchant, and the society itself grows to be what is properly a commercial society. That was said by Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations. That's not happening in St. Martin because majority of us are actually consumers, not producers, right?
Yes, I agree with that. Definitely.
Now the problem is that in what I've been taught is that specialization is very, very good because efficiency is achieved through specialization. And I won't deny that. The problem you have though is that resilience is achieved through being a generalist. So that's diversification. And so you have to give up more of one for the other in order to achieve whatever. So if you want to talk about resilience, you cannot specialize too much. And I think we have decided to specialize, and that is proven to hinder our resiliency. And so in other words, you cannot have both. There's a thin line between them. If you go more towards efficiency, which is specialization, you're gonna become more you're gonna become less resilient. And the more you go towards being a generalist or diversifying, you become more resilient. Now the panda versus the squirrel, the problem with the panda is the panda only eats one type of bamboo.
Mm.
And if that bamboo is not existent, the panda would basically die. Okay, that's all he eats. And you see that the panda is becoming extinct. So this is the specialization aspect of things. The squirrel now will survive anything because the squirrel eats everything. Okay, so the squirrel will strive. So our method as a small island, we should be more like the squirrel and not like the panda.
Okay,
Okay.
I get that.
Okay. So now, um, the problems with trade today is the official monetary system has almost nothing to do with the real economy. And
Can you repeat that for me, please?
say that again.
Can you repeat that sentence you just said?
So today's official monetary system
Mm-hmm.
has almost nothing to do with the real economy. Why I said that is because in 1995, for example, there was some statistics, some stats that came out that says that the volume of currency exchange on the global level was 1.3 trillion per day. Okay? And this was 30 times more than the daily gross domestic product of the developed countries, OECD. I also said that the annual GDP of the United States was being turned in the market every 3 days. And of that, only 2 or 3% has to do with real trade or investment. The remainder was based on speculation. Okay. So you need to understand that when people are speculating, it has an effect on your money, right? It has an effect on your cost of living and all these aspects. And this is why I tell people you really have to know the problems with money, and you have to be keen on keeping a record of how you're spending your money, where it's coming from and where is it going, right? Because of this speculation aspect. Okay, so let me skip this. Now, what I will do now, because of time, I'll go straight into the tool I use to manage my money.
Okay. Can I just read one question someone asked here in the comments?
Go ahead.
So Alicia McPherson said, so if you fail to manage your household properly, and she put in brackets, unbalanced economy, does it then means it's also reflected on your money, income, earnings?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Because remember, in one of the scriptures, it also says a wise person leaves an inheritance to the second and I think it's the third and fourth generation or something to that effect. If you look at certain cultures, that's what they do. Like the Chinese culture, the Indian culture, that's what they tend to do. They really have a grip on managing the funds. And for us, people of color, I think for most so, a lot of us have that problem. But I wouldn't say that either, because in America now, a lot of persons also, not necessarily of color, also have the problem, and it's a global problem as well. But it seems that some cultures have a better grip on it than other cultures.
Okay.
Okay,
I
so
do.
let me just jump into. I want to get you with the tool first before I even start getting into some of the theory, because due to lack of time,
Okay.
I'll
Go
get
ahead.
to the tool that I use. Can you see like a spreadsheet on the screen? Or are you still seeing the presentation?
Yeah, I'm still seeing why have money become cumbersome. That's
Okay,
what.
so then I have to find a way to share this, what I'm seeing now. 1 second.
Mhm. But I still think there's a lapse on our end as well.
Lapse?
No, I think so on my end.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do then,
Hmm.
let me then stop sharing.
Okay.
Then I'm gonna go share again, and then I'm gonna, okay, here we go.
Okay.
Share. So what you see now, are you seeing this tool, the spreadsheet?
Yes, I'm seeing the Excel sheet. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a blank budgeting workbook, and it's basically now doing as if you're coming to budget for the first time, so you can get a gist of it.
Hmm.
Now, when you start to spend, the chart that the view you're seeing now, you will start seeing it showing up as a pie chart, and the pie chart will show you where the most of your spending is being concentrated, and then when you see that, you can then focus on that area, which could be a problematic area. But before you do that, you have to set up your account. So in this case, you go to the next tab, and of course, everyone use cash, but you
Hmm.
might want to use for your budget bank account. So in
Okay.
this case, I would just say, okay, this is my RBC bank account XXX47, 45 rather, and then I might want to use my Web account XXX 64.
Hmm.
And then once I have that, the next step for me is I will go now in my personal budget, and this is the planning phase now. Now we are already in July, so then I'm gonna just pick July. Okay.
Hmm.
Now ideally you want to know what your starting balance is when you're ready to budget, in terms of what do I have in my account in my cash right now. Okay, so that's the first step you would want to know when you start the budget.
Hmm.
Now, what you can do to make it easier, you can actually then go to the income tab
Okay.
and then start to put in the starting balances of your cash, and also the two bank accounts that I put in the beginning. And
Hmm.
why I put them in the beginning, because they're going to show up in a drop-down table over here. So you can
Okay.
select them. If you can see what I'm saying.
Yes, I can see.
You can see whatever in that is whatever you put in the table I did over there, it will show up here, the drop-down, that you can select it when you're going to do your transactions.
Okay.
So now, what I will do today is the 23rd. So this 23rd of July, I'm plugging that in right now. And I'm going to put, I have cash, $50.
Hmm.
I will just put cash starting balance. And I don't need to put that because I know what that is already. So I'll just put cash.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do that, if I go back to account summary, what do you see? Automatically the $50 show up as my account summary overview. So this account summary overview always keep a overview of what balances I have in terms of cash in my bank account. So you always would know where you're at in terms of liquid, if you're liquid.
For persons who are viewing, what is liquid cash? Let's just
So
break it
liquid
down.
means what if you go to your bank account and you go in your wallet, if I tally up all of those things, that's my liquid cash.
So just cash that you have in your hands, basically.
Cash and also on the bank
On
that you're gonna
okay,
that you can use to pay expenses.
okay. Let me, for all of our viewers who are viewing, what you're seeing right now is Emilio is basically teaching us a simple way of how we can budget our money. So grab your pen, grab your paper, and just make some simple notes. So this is a simple example of how we can learn to manage our own personal finances. Okay, go ahead, Emilio.
Okay, so now I want to get the starting balances for these two accounts, the RBC and the WIB. So then I go into the income tab
Mm-hmm.
and I gotta do the same thing. I'm gonna do today's date. I will say for the RBC, I'm just gonna make a random number. I'm just gonna put $1,000 leave back.
Mm-hmm.
I will put RBC starting balance.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I will select the RBC boom, and then I go back and check it, make sure it's there. Boom, 1,000. You see the 1,000 show up?
Yes.
Okay, I do the same thing for the WIB. Let me say for WIB, I have, let's put $800. I put WIB starting balance, and then I'm gonna select the WIB and go back and make sure that it's there, 800. So now I'm starting off with physical money. So I know I have all of this between my bank and my cash of 8,850.
Mm-hmm.
And because I know that, I can also then take the 1,850 and go to my budgeting now, which is the planning tool. And then I'm in July, so I will say I'm gonna start with 1,850 on my accounts, because these are the accounts I'm gonna use to spend my money. If you're not gonna, you should not put a savings account in there if you're not planning to use it for spending, because a savings account should not be used for spending. So only accounts you're gonna use to spend is what you're gonna put in as accounts and so forth. So if you catch what I mean.
Yes, I do understand.
Okay, so now for July, I have 1,850. If I go back and confirm, so I'm starting with 1,850. So that's what I have in my budget now. And then the end of the month coming, so I'm supposed to get my salary. So as you can see here, wages. So let's say this person gets $2,200 a month.
Okay.
Put that in. So now you have 450 now in the income part. And let's say that's all they basically have now. The
Mm-hmm.
next step is go down to expenses, the home expenses. You see here, rent.
Yeah.
And then you go across for July. You're probably gonna pay your rent at the end of the month. So let's say your rent is $800. You put that in. Telephone, how much you plan to spend for telephone. Now, the telephone here assumes a fixed data connection. If you're gonna do, for example, mobile, you can also do it here, but you can also put it on lower down in something called dues. But I'll show you that in a bit. I usually just put it here though. Even though I don't have a fixed line, I have a mobile, I still put it here. So on average, I tend to spend maybe like, uh, let's say $35. I'm just putting something now for telephone.
Per month.
Well, because we're done already in July, almost at the end of July.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I can't put the whole month because I'm doing as if I'm starting from today. I never budgeted in my life. So I'm
Okay.
starting as for today. So I'm looking at for today until the end of the month. And then of course August now would be a bigger amount because August is the full month.
Makes sense.
Okay, so I'm just doing as if I'm just starting to budget for the first time.
Okay.
And then taking from today into consideration going forward. Utilities now, let's say I'm just gonna make up something, maybe $100.
Mm-hmm.
And so forth. So you keep doing this for each section. So you have core section, you have the home, and on the home you have all these items on the home. Then transportation is the same thing. So if you're a person that don't have a car, but you take the bus, taxi, or whatever, you can put how much you're gonna spend there. In my case, I do have a car. So the fuel, gasoline, I usually spend $50 a week. So I'll just put $20 here for the rest because I have one more week left in the month.
Okay.
I tend to also put aside money for maintenance in advance. Even though I might not get a maintenance issue in advance, I still do put it aside. And then what I do, I actually move the money to my savings account. So it actually moves away from my expenses account. So then I don't tamper with it, if you catch what I mean.
Maintenance for what? Maintenance for your car?
Yeah, so let's say now, so I put aside that every month. I don't want to wait until something happened and I don't
Mhm.
have the money. Because
Okay.
every time you drive the car, it actually is wear and tear on your vehicle. So
Yes.
actually, you are incurring maintenance technically, but just that it doesn't materialize until later when you see it.
Yes.
So in this case, it's almost the end of the month. I probably would have done that already, but let me just say for sake of for this explanation, I'm just gonna put in this case, let me say $20. When I plan to wash the car or whatever, I'll put that down because you have car wash, parking, and so forth. So you only use what's relevant. You don't have to necessarily fill in every single thing, but you
Mm-hmm.
use what's relevant on the transportation. Food now for the next week, I probably might spend for groceries, maybe $100.
Mm-hmm.
Dining out over here, I might spend maybe $50 for the last week, and then maybe for other, I just put $20.
Mm-hmm.
Keep coming down. I won't do everything because it will take too long. But you have living expenses, and under living expenses, you can see what all you can have.
Mm-hmm.
Personal care, you come down to insurance. So I do pay insurance um, every month for life insurances and so forth. Even for car insurances, I would recommend you don't wait until the car insurance is due. If your car insurance is $1,200 for the, I'm just gonna say something. If your
Yeah.
car insurance or insurance is $1,200 for the year, try to reserve $100 a month and put it aside for the savings that you have it. Because if you wait till the last minute to put it aside, you more than likely won't have it. Then you might have to go in debt to borrow the money. That's the problem.
Mm.
Okay.
I
Now
think
you
our viewers are hearing this, right? Are you hearing this? Go
right.
ahead.
So I'm not gonna fill in everything because of time, okay? And then, but I just show you the different head components. You have health, and under that you have some people go to the gym and so forth. So you can put this under here as well. Health clubs or whatever. Entertainment. You have to have entertainment to keep you a bit sane sometimes. So you have a cable TV, CDs, movies, concerts, and so forth. So you can actually budget for it. So when
Yeah.
I hear people say I don't have I like to go out and I can't budget because I like to go out and spend money. It's not a problem. Just budget for it. And
Yeah.
once you exceed the budget, that's it. You wait till the next month to do your thing again.
Exactly. I agree with that. I told you
Yeah,
I do that.
exactly.
Yeah.
You have taxes. And in my case, I have back taxes. So I do budget for this section. Legal, if you have any legal issues, if you have to take your employer to court or whatever, you can put that here and so forth. You have loan obligations. So you have a whole list you fill in your plan. And so that's for that month you will plan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you don't necessarily have to plan for this month. You can also plan for the whole year. So you can
Mm-hmm.
actually go ahead and start filling in stuff you do know. You already know, for example, you pay $800 a month each month. So you can just go ahead and keep filling in the stuff that you know already, which is fixed expenses,
Fixed expenses.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Telephone, I usually pay $50, about $60 in the month.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just drag that across. You know what I mean? So you can plan for the whole year if you choose. You don't have to, but you can do it. I plan to do it so I can see what the problem is going to happen.
Makes sense. So
Okay?
then you also have better control and a better analysis of your finance, like a
Right,
forecast of it.
right. So now if I go down here, I can see at the end, it actually tells you what my total expenses are. If you look at this line,
Mm-hmm.
and whether I'm gonna have a cash short extra. In this case, it's positive, so it's telling me that I have a positive of 2,905. That's
Mm-hmm.
because, of course, I didn't really budget all my money, okay? Because I didn't fill in everything here. Because I ideally, this should be equal to um, down below. Sorry, this thing just dropped, went way too fast. So ideally, you should be budgeting that you allocate every dollar that you get, you give it a job, so to speak. So in my case, I still have to allocate 2,905 within my budget. I don't have any other expenses, and I want to leave it there maybe for additional expenses to help next month. I can do that, or I can just say, you know what, I'm going to throw it in savings for now. So I'll
Okay.
go up to my savings over here and say, okay, I'm going to throw that difference of 2,950 in my savings. And then at the bottom, a 45 too much. So I have to reduce that by 45 because
I-
a red and negative means I'm in a problem.
yes, but can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Would you recommend for persons who are learning to manage their money or even have been managing their money, do you recommend for them to have allow themselves to be access to their savings?
No, that's what I told you when I doing when I'm filling my accounts, I
Uh-huh.
only choose accounts that I'm gonna be using for expenses, and I want to include my savings account in this. What
Okay.
would happen is I would send money to my savings account, but don't let it show up in here because if you leave it show up in here, people have a tendency to want to see money on account. They will
Yeah.
start to spend it. So anything they have to do with savings reserves, emergency funds or whatever, even though you have a bank account fit, I won't put it in here. You
Okay.
understand? So money will go towards it, and it will go off as an expense, but it
Uh-huh.
will not show in here to see that I have a balance in it. Because if people see the balance, they would, oh wow, I have a ton of money in here. I will try to spend it.
Mm-hmm. Let me, before I ask before I read Kemai's question, let's say for instance, because you mentioned about possible expenses for your cars, right? If there is something happen, you have a budget there for it.
Mhm.
Let's just say for July, nothing happens with your car that will cause you to actually spend money on wear and tears. What
Mhm.
would you do with that money? Would you recycle it to the next month, or would you put it in your savings account? What would you do with that
Yes.
money?
So ideally is like let's look at for example a typical insurance. Let's say if your insurance was $1,200 for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So technically you actually paying $100 a month if you look at it that way.
Yes.
But they don't charge you per month. I mean, you can go into a payment arrangement with them if you want to, but most people have to pay one shot usually at the end of the year, right?
Yes.
Now, if you want to be prudent and make sure that you have that money available to give to the insurance one shot, what you would do ideally, you budget the $100 a month, but then
Mm-hmm.
you will take it after you budget for it, you actually physically now move that money to the savings account that you don't really have access to, or you're not administrating in terms of you don't show it in your tool. Leave it
Okay.
out. You move the money. So it's as if you actually spend it when you move it.
Yeah.
But remember, only the accounts that you're gonna be using for expenses is what you're gonna be showing in your budget. So when you move it now, the actual expense, you register it and you move it, it
Mm-hmm.
goes to your savings account.
Makes sense. Can I ask, are there simplified versions that can be used on our mobile phones?
There are companies that do give you how to say now the software version on whatever. The
Mm-hmm.
problem I had with some of them is that you have to understand the mechanism and you can't deviate from that unless you need to do some other stuff that maybe might be more beneficial to you. With
Mm-hmm.
Excel, you could kind of still tweak it to get it to do what you want to do. With
Well,
them, you really have to understand their philosophy and
mm-hmm.
then stick to it. Why I came up with my own because I tried to use other stuff, and it
Mm-hmm.
just was not meeting the needs that I wanted it. So I decided to do a more robust one that
Mm-hmm.
can benefit me in different ways. But
Okay.
indeed, you can definitely get it. But the tools online, indeed, you can get it for app. You have apps,
Yeah.
and those are the things you can also do online as well.
Personally, over the past several years, I've downloaded several budgeting apps. And it's just to add to what you said, to actually complement what you stated. A lot of them, they have features, but it's not specifically for what I needed. So
Correct.
that's where I had the problem. And like you, my personal issue is I created a spreadsheet, but to actually access my laptop every single time to update it, that was my issue. So I
Yeah.
just put it on my phone.
Yeah. So what you can do actually, if you have Dropbox, you can actually put the Excel sheet in Dropbox.
Okay.
And then you have job access. Once you have, but you have to have access to internet though. Most people do have access to internet on their phone. And then
Yeah.
you could actually link your phone to Dropbox as well. And then
Okay.
you just do everything from within your phone in Dropbox. And then of course it'll be updated as well. And if you have Dropbox connected to your laptop, it'll also be updated as well. So that's the other option you can do as well.
Okay. So I think Kema, you would have heard that. I'm pretty sure he's still tuning in. So thank you so much for that, Emilio. You can carry on now. Betty, you're good?
Okay, so we have, I just put some things together now. And now this tool here is just the actual planning. So you have the planning phase, but you have the actual tracking phase where you compare your planning with what you said you budgeted. And that is done in this overview over here. So if I go to July, we're done in July already. So you can see this column here,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So it says here that if you look at the income side, which is green, it says that I have 1850. I budgeted 450 for income, but I didn't receive 2,200 as yet. No, yes, yeah, sorry. So I didn't receive that as yet. Now for the housing, you said I budgeted 935 for July.
Mm-hmm.
And so the balance is still 935 because I didn't spend anything as yet.
Okay.
So this column represents the, except the income part, of course.
Mm-hmm.
This represents all the expenses up to now.
Mm-hmm.
This is the budgeted, and then this compares the two. So we're gonna do an exercise right now to fill in actual expenses for housing, and then you will see what's gonna happen.
Okay.
Now, for me to go to housing, each one of each expenditure category have its own tab.
Mm-hmm.
This is the housing tab, the transport tab, the food tab, and so forth. I did it this way to make it very simple for persons to understand to do it, because if you use like an accounting system or whatever, you have to understand what is a general ledger account and so forth. It makes it a bit more tricky for some people, right? So I just created a tab. So everything you fill into this housing tab is related to housing. Anything that's put into the transport tab is related to transport, and so forth and so forth. So for housing now, I'm gonna go in now and put in, I'm gonna do as if it's almost the end of the month. I'm gonna put here the 29th of July.
Mm-hmm.
I paid $800 to my landlord. My landlord is John Doe. Rent, description, and then I'm gonna say, well, I'm gonna use whether cash. I can't use cash because I only had $50, so I have to use one of these accounts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna use the RBC account.
Okay.
Okay, so when I go back to the monthly expenses now, you see that the 800 pops up.
Mm-hmm.
My budget is 935, so I'm still good. Once I'm positive on this side, that means I have $135 left to spend for that for July. Still, so I'm looking good.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm gonna do transport. Let's say I'm gonna use today, 23rd of July. I'm gonna use in this case $60. Let's do Napa and put parts for repair or something like that. And I'm gonna use, in this case, I'm gonna use RBC as well. And then when I go to expenses, you can see that I paid so far $60. This is the actual expenses so far. I had budgeted 40. I have a negative 20 short. Okay. If you go down to the bottom as well, it keeps track of your position as well. Total expenses, both actual, budgeted, and what's balanced. And the net here is 990. So in this actual situation, I had 1850. When I subtract my expenses, I'm supposed to have 990 in my accounts overview. To cross-reference that, I go back to the accounts, and it should add up. You see here? So
Yeah.
my balances should actually add up 990. And as you can see, I can go back and check to see what my RBC balance is. So it dropped. It was originally, I think, 1,000 something, right?
Yes.
Now it's down to 140. Down to my WIB is down to 800. Okay, I didn't use WIB as yet, and I still have 50 cash. So this 990 actually balances back with my monthly expenses overview. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I know for a fact there's two things that are important, that I can't spend more than 990 at this point, because that's what I have in my accounts over here. Unless you decide to use a credit card, which is a different procedure, which I can show you, but it might, it's because of lack of time, I won't go through all of that.
Yeah.
So it is just to show you that with this tool, it really keeps you in check. So it gives you the planning, and then as you typing your expenses every month, so you can have multiple expenses, of course. So every time you get an expense, you keep filling it in, and it will, let's fill in our next expense for housing. Let's say we're gonna pay our GB. Same time.
For persons in other Caribbean islands, GB here in St. Martin means the utility company, so electricity and water company.
Yeah. And in this case now, let's say I wanted to pay GB, but I was wondering if I could transfer the money online or whatever. I would have to first go and check to see, okay, what are my accounts? If
Mm.
GB is 100, okay, I good. I can't use cash because I don't have sufficient cash. I
Okay.
can use my RBC to pay them online because I have 140 leave back on my account. And I said, okay, I have WIB. WIB have more money there, so let me use WIB instead because I don't want my RBC to go down too much. Then
Mm-hmm.
I will go back now into probably log out online to to my net banking. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, then I will go and pay via, sorry, where am I? Sorry, I'll go pay via my WIB.
Mm-hmm.
And once that is done, I can go back now and also verify what my balances are on my accounts. So you
Mm-hmm.
can see that my WIB went from 800 to $700. So I have 890 leave back in total on my accounts. I can verify that with my expenditure report is also 890, so I'm in balance. So that's how I keep in check. So it's really something to help you monitor and
Mm-hmm.
keep you abreast and also check out your expenses. If I go to the spending chart, I can see already that my housing is so far represents 93.75% of what I spent so far.
Mm.
Okay, and as I keep spending, this chart keeps updating.
Dating.
Yeah,
So for persons who are following, again, we must reiterate. During the height of COVID, we realized, especially having conversations with persons, and this is where Emilio expertise is, and I'm pretty sure Betty knows this as well. But what we are doing right now is basically teaching you how to budget. We are giving you the tools as to how you can utilize your phone. And in this case, we are using Excel, and how
right.
you can learn how to manage your own personal finances. We're looking at our monthly expenses. We're talking about utilities, electricity, water, internet, house rent, food, gas for your car, everything. So this is exactly what we're doing here.
Even
Teaching.
children, even children you
Uh,
could budget for, huh?
sorry.
Even kids. So in the budgeting part, you also have a part that has children. So, for example, if you have a child,
Mhm.
you have children. When they go to school, some of them have food. You have to have lunch money,
Exactly.
clothing,
Even
medical.
daycare. Daycare is
Yeah.
monthly.
Right. So child care is over here. So you can actually put in month by month and so forth. So even like school fees usually do annually sometimes.
Yes.
You can put which month it is due. Your insurance for the if you have a mortgage, you can also put which month in the year the insurance for the mortgage is due. So you
Mhm.
already have a planning and a picture in your head already how you're gonna be looking, and you could when you see when you do it for the whole year, you can kind of see already when you're gonna start getting into problems when it's red.
Exactly.
I
And
didn't put everything for the whole year as yet because if I drag this 2000 over, of course it'll be positive, of course. But
mhm,
you can see it going back, it gone positive now. 'Cause I didn't fill in everything.
mhm,
But the idea is for you to do that, and so you can get an idea already beforehand. Where am I at? You know what I mean? What's gonna happen? And if I have reds or negative, how can I resolve that? Do I need to reduce my expenses? And what can I reduce? And then you go over this as a planning to see
mhm,
where you can reduce and where you can't reduce, but you still have a negative. You have to figure out how I'm gonna get some extra money.
mhm. And that's where the creativity comes in. So
Right.
again, we want to really allow persons to understand again what is happening here. This is how, in order, what is happening right now with a pandemic, right? We were accustomed of spending one way because we were earning. So a lot of persons were spending according to how they were earning without even understanding what their expenses were. They weren't budgeting their expenses. So now a lot of persons are in a jam. So how do we, first of all, before we can get ourselves out of this, we need to understand what we are really in and what kind of
Right.
money we have in our hands right now, and
Right.
how can we manage this money that's in our hands. And here it is, we are giving you the tools step by step and teaching you, because we know that this is what is needed. We're teaching you how to balance your money, how to budget your money.
One more thing, Keoma, you realize now, even with the expenses, one thing, but you have to watch your money. That's why this line is in green. So I said in this case, in July, I was supposed to get 4050.
Mhm,
Somehow I only get 1850, so I'm short 2200. But
mhm,
why is that? Because in my personal budget, I had put 2200, but that didn't came in as yet. You realize that it didn't came in as yet. If it did, I would have had in this overview, this would have never been negative 2,200.
Mm.
So now my boss pays me now finally. So now I can go into my income sheet now and say my boss paid me at the end of the let's say the 29th he paid me.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is my net salary. Let's say my the company is, let's say I'm working for Telem.
Mm-hmm.
I would put salary July, and then they paid me on my RBC bank account.
Mm-hmm.
That's an example. Now when I go check now, boom, my RBC account looking good. I would then of course take my bank statement and compare it to if it's actually this for sure. So
Yeah.
if my bank statement doesn't have that, I know I did something wrong. So that's why you do your cross check. At the
Mm-hmm.
same time, when I go to the monthly expenses, I see boom, it's zero. So that means my money was received. And now at the bottom here, I'm looking groovy. So my expenditure was this. My total money was 450. So I have a balance of 1390 to spend still. I cross-reference that with my accounts. I have 1390, and then they split up in 700 on my web, RBC 20 something, and $50 in cash. So you can always cross-reference, and you can actually go in your wallet and check to see if you even have $50. If you don't, then you know you spent something and you didn't report it.
Mm. I'm really enjoying this. And I see Kevin Charles, who's in Trinidad, he said he loved the layout of the information. Um, I really believe this is necessary, and I think persons have this tendency, and this is what I believe we also need to shift our mindset. When they see something that appears, oh my God, it's hard, without even trying to, and this is where how we will end up in situations like this, where we are not able to even understand how we are spending our own money because we are living paycheck to paycheck. And
Right.
times like this, this is where it happens. So I'm really hoping that our viewers, whether you're tuning live right now or you will look at the replay, that you are really and truly making notes of this vital information you're receiving right now. It's not even information, it's teaching. We're teaching you how, step by step, to manage your finances.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, just to show you how the chart, the graphs work, the pie chart works, I'm gonna just do some stuff that is just to give you the picture, because I'll just do that as if I'm gonna exceed my monetary aspect, but that won't be possible because whatever is on your bank account you can't exceed.
Mhm.
But just for the sake of an illustration, I will do something like that. So
Okay.
let's say let's go to food. So let's say my food budget, I decide to spend seven.
Camera,
Yeah.
Emilio, let me read something. One of our viewers just said. Polo
Mhm.
just said, I started that layout, but then I stopped and I realized I spend more on stuff I don't really need.
That's the point. But at least
Yeah,
you know, at least you can see what the problem is.
yes. And he could admit it to himself as well.
Yeah. Okay, so that's groceries. I'm gonna use the reason why I want to do that. I want to just show you how as you keep spending, the
Mm-hmm.
pie chart adapts.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see now, at this point, it's real time. So every time I fill in my expenditures based on my receipts and whatever, the chart adapts so they can see where I'm at. So you can see so far I spent 4.11% of my income on transport,
Mm-hmm.
housing 61.64% at this point in time, food 34.25. So as I keep spending,
Mm-hmm.
and I pull in my receipts. Let's go to, for example, some people have kids, and kids could be very expensive as well. So they would just fill in something for kids and then see how that pops up.
Mm-hmm.
Just fill in anything, huh? Jessica fashion or something
Sure.
like that. And clothing, we use RBC. So then over here now on my spending, see it keeps adapting. So you can see children is 14.62% and so forth. So ideally at the end of the month, when you did all your expenses and you look at your pie chart, you will see, okay, where's my biggest expenditure going? You see what I'm
I
saying?
Here it's not showing. It says, sorry, we're having trouble playing the video. So I'm not sure if you can disconnect the shared screen and you can just reconnect it again.
Okay, let me
Yep.
see. Yeah, no problem. I'll stop it. And yeah, okay, you can see it now?
Yes, I can see it. 1 minute. Yeah, I'm seeing the screen here. Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
Okay, so now, so every time you keep plugging in, and then at the end of the month, you get a better picture based on the pie chart where in that month, where was the problem? And then you keep doing that. Every time you do it per month, you eventually you will realize where you have to focus on to try to reduce expenses if you don't already know. Because sometimes people don't know because they don't keep a administration or a track record where the money is going. And this pie chart can see you at a glance where my problem is, and you can zoom in at the problem one time. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
is was it in a nutshell. I mean, this was also like a small illustration, just to give you an idea of how it works.
Thank you very much for this. And I'm pretty sure persons will find value in it because for me, I can tell you, for me, I did not know, but I wasn't even taught how to budget per se. I was not taught how to budget. I just learned on my own, to understand my own finances and decide, hey, how am I going to really do this? And on my own, I learned, but I was raised in a household where my parents budgeted. And even though it was not taught to us, to myself and my siblings, I think it just came on, maybe because it was in within our household system. So yeah, so Betty, so before it goes back to Betty, so what we just did was to really, allow persons to understand the basics. And one thing I would want to ask you, Emilio, is for persons who are not computer literate or even tech savvy in terms of going online and downloading a money management app, how can we do this in a more simplified way? How can we do that?
I have the manual version to it.
Hmm.
It looks a little bit different than the Excel version, of course.
Okay.
And it's more for those old time people who used to keep ledgers and with the hand by hand or whatever.
Hmm.
So and for the community, for example, they brought me in by the community development to give budgeting to the community.
Okay.
And so I could never use Excel sheet because most minded persons usually don't know how to use Excel. Or the targeted group was
Hmm.
not persons who usually would know how to use Excel.
Okay.
So of course, I created a manual program that they can use. Of course, it takes more longer because you have to then use a calculator to add
Yeah.
up and so forth and subtract. But of course, it's done almost the same way, but not in the format you see there today. It's a different format.
Yes. I do know how it works in Excel, and I love the fact that everything just regenerates, automatically it's calculated. So I really
Right.
love that and I appreciate that.
Right.
But I'm for persons, just to add to what Emilio said, you can even get a notepad. And because I would assume, or we would have assumed that you know what your expenses are, you know what your income is, what your expenses are, and get a note, not a notepad, because the pages can come out. Get a book, like a comprehension book, and make it by month. Get a pen, not a pencil, and make notes of it. And you're able there to at least start managing your own income. And it should not be only in the height of COVID, but it should be or should have been something that we were doing on a regular basis, day-to-day basis. As I said in our last gapping, when I bought my first car, I went to the gas station and filled the tank, and I knew exactly how much it cost to fill that tank. And I said to myself, you know what? Two gas tank per month. So one gas tank was 40 guilders back then, and I said 80 guilders, but I put just in case an excess, maybe like 20, 30 guilders. But I did not say, oh, I have 20 guilders, I have an excess. Let me just drive around. No, I only, go out when I really needed to. Sometimes, you go joyriding from time to time just to feel like I'm alive. But I did everything with moderation And I was very aware of what I was doing, even to, as you mentioned, to recreation. I know what I like. I like going out for dinners. I like going out to the movies. I having ice cream. So I put all of those things in my budget. So I don't feel as though, oh my God, I'm struggling, but I'm managing my money good. I'm saving, but I'm still alive because I'm still spending money doing what I love, but on a budget. So thank you so much for that. And I find so much value in it. And we definitely, this needs to be a conversation we need to have again in a more simplified version with more time, right? So definitely, I know you said you had to go. Is it time for you to leave, or are you good? Because I want to get Betty in to
No,
really touch
yeah,
base.
I have until I have another probably like, another 20 minutes or so. So I'm away.
Okay, perfect. So Betty, I hope you're not you're not there, uh, as we say here, collecting dust.
No, that was very informative.
Yeah, I know you find value in these conversations. I know you find value in these conversations. You know, I personally I enjoy whenever we meet and we can have in-depth conversations. That's Betty and I. But Betty, you know what we just did, even to Emilio, what we just did is what was necessary for these times. We need to allow persons to understand their money and how to spend the money. And before Emilio went into his presentation, you mentioned something. The business money is not your money. You pay yourself a salary, but in the beginning, you may not even be making sufficient money to even pay yourself a salary you desire. And we find a lot of times persons will get carried away. Oh, you will see $5,000 in the business account and you feel, oh, I deserve $1,000 every month. Betty, how do you manage? Because you're a small business. For persons who are now getting into that space, how do you manage that? You don't have to tell us your expenses, but how do you go about managing it?
Could you repeat that, Keoma?
Sure.
Repeat the question.
How do you have a small business, right? Even in the height of COVID, in the height of Hurricane Irma, the business, the production of the business is no longer the same. So basically, you won't be making as much as you're making right now before, right? Do you pay yourself a salary still? How do you manage your expenses? And how do you gauge that with yourself? How do you manage your business money against who you are, your personal income?
What I have done is I shop smaller.
Mm.
I still pay myself because I leave the last. I'm there the first. So I pay myself first. And
Okay.
for the last 2 months, I paid myself like 1/3. And I even if I spend it back into the business, but at least the initial thing of paying me to make me feel like I have a job because I had a business to pay me.
Mm.
So even if I spend the money back into the business, my thing is I pay Betty first.
Mm.
Even if I have to spend it back into something for the business or related around the business.
Mm.
And then it makes me feel like my effort of getting up for 30 and going to the supermarket after I close, and you can feel like I am doing a job and I got paid for it.
Mm.
That's
This
how
sense
I
of
do it.
pride. It feels like there's a sense of pride.
Yes.
Yes.
May I ask something? So Betty, you have NV sole proprietorship. What type of business do you have? Is a
I have
company?
an envy. I have an envy now.
Okay, so the NV, what you said there is very important because if you're gonna take say for example, the NV pays you your salary and you
Mm-hmm.
put in that money back into the NV, actually have to register that the NV owes you, huh? So the NV has a loan towards you. Is
Yes.
that
That's what we do. Yes,
okay?
that's what we do.
Okay, good, good.
Oh, good. And for our viewers who may not know what NV is, it's a limited liability company, a LLC. Okay, so our viewers, just in case, it's a limited liability company. So that is important too that you mentioned, because even though she's the owner of the company and she's receiving a salary, the mere fact that she is loaning, you're not putting it back into the business, you're lending the business that money. And just like the bank, some persons add an interest on it as well. because it's actually a loan, right? And I
That's
believe there should be no sympathy when you feel, oh, let me put an interest in it. I believe there should be no sympathy. But Betty, for us, I have a holistic view of what your journey has been like. You said you started in 1995 or before even 1995. What was that journey like for you up until Hurricane Irma? Because you moved from making sandwiches in your home to selling in your car, driving around to different businesses and selling in your car. How else did you move about establishing your business? What are the structures you created along the way before you get to the point where you are right now?
I used to put food at food center also. So if it came to like salads and soups, I used to put that. So that was a different level, other than going out to different to the workplaces. So I had two different entities. On Saturdays, I would stay by food center, and even when it changed, to not Grandma Shea, I would do tasting every Saturday. Even
Mm,
when my kids were small, I could remember back then I would do tasting,
mm,
especially when it came to salads and lighter foods that everybody's doing now. And
mm,
then catering would come in also. So there was so many different areas of me cooking and sharing the way that I like food, or I would like to let people experience what I am doing.
mm,
It was always I would say a very lonely journey, because
mm,
you're always reinventing, thinking, changing. You know what you're going to do tomorrow, how you're going to do it. You're staying up late at night, waking up early in the morning, but there's always something different, especially before YouTube came so popular. The magazines that would come in on the stands. You're always looking for new ideas, and I would always travel also when things get stable a little bit more. Once I came into town, I would travel regularly, like every year, to a food show that would put me ahead and let me understand the new trends that's happening out there. But moving on to that journey, I would say was a very exciting journey. But in business, when you're doing it for yourself, it's lonely. No, it's an alone journey. Not lonely, an alone journey, because only you know what you have in your head. Until you speak it and bring it into existence, only you alone know, have that vision in your head until you write it down, until you send it out. So you're walking around with it until you put it on paper, and then you establish it.
mm,
My journey from then until now has been very exciting, Keoma. It's
mm,
been an exciting journey. When Irma came around, because I had a savings, I was able to rebuild. And I think it's so important to save, that a business has something to look back on, to be in a kind of disaster, that you can help yourself. Because that's, if you don't have it, you have to close. If I didn't have it, I would have to close. I wouldn't have anything to rebuild with. And now this is a new experience, because with the hurricane, you rebuild, and everybody's rebuilding and people are coming back.
mm,
This one is the most uncertain thing that I've had since I've had business, since in the 80s.
mm,
It's very uncertain, and I'm not nervous about it. I'm anxiously looking to see the new trend, what's
mm,
going to happen. But it's I can say I really can't put my finger on it. And
mm,
walk around, and you're looking around and you're wondering what now,
mm,
because this one is new. I've
mm,
never had this, and I don't think a lot of people on the island had it. Looking
mm.
at all the stores closed on Front Street, nothing coming in. It's it's. I would say I question myself a lot. What next?
Mm. But Betty, if I can stick a pin, right? I really want persons to understand, especially again, who will be starting new businesses now or who have already been in business before. In 1995, when it was Hurricane Lewis, you already had a business, right? And from,
Yeah,
and I remember in our conversation, you transitioned from having that physical structure, which was damaged, to again selling by Kim Shaw Beach. And where the at night, I remember you told me you would come out at 11 a.m., 11 p.m. at night, wait for when the clubs were finished and sell out there, and how you transition from there. Because I think this is what is important. If you really want to do this, you must be resilient. You must be able to reinvent the wheel every single time. If you could just touch base just a little bit.
When I gave up on from going up late at night, I went to where Pineapple Pizza is now. And I had a small business in the back by the lagoon. And I really thought that, you know, being by the water was something different. And it was, until the hurricanes after Lewis came in. Because remember, we had hurricanes after Lewis back to back.
Yeah.
So that's where I got knocked out from there. And then I came into town. But moving from there, I went back to my kitchen. And I went back on the road to sell on the road after those hurricanes. So I was in my kitchen for more than 5 years selling on the road. And I transitioned by going into the Daily Herald and getting, what's her name? Electra to come kitchen and put let they can order from Chica's kitchen. And then I still go on the road. So I did that for 5 years, and then slowly but surely accumulate funds to be able to open here where I am. And when I opened here, I came to the table and 2 chafing dishes and a showcase, because the food still came from the kitchen in Cold Bay. You know, it wasn't like you just come and open a kitchen and had everything. No, I started with umbrellas, a table, 2 or 3 chafing dishes. Every day in the morning, I'll close like around 10, go back, prepare the lunch, help with somebody in the kitchen, and then come back at least for 12 o'clock to sell lunch until 3 o'clock. So it was like, you know, you open for breakfast, close, and then open for lunch. It was a small transition before this grew into what it is now. And it was a journey of self-determination and focus and hard work. It wasn't glamorous. Nothing about it was glamorous at all. It was just what you know that your long-term goal was. But there was nothing glamorous reaching here.
I think this is what we need to really understand, because when I really start to observe not you, but the manner in which you do the business was after Hurricane Irma. Everyone knows so many businesses were destroyed. Well, a lot of the structures were more damaged by the looting, but nevertheless, our economy was in shambles after Hurricane Irma, right? And I worked at that time with a UN organization, and we came to your place, and you can correct me, Hurricane Irma was in September. By March or so, your business was already up, even though your physical structure, what you had up was damaged. So you were still serving, you were still cooking from at home in the kitchen while the reconstruction was still happening.
Yes, what we did, everything was done back in that kitchen. So we do the sandwiches, the Johnny cakes, everything in the morning, and bring it in already prepared. And then we'll go back for the lunch. So just like when we started, we went back to how we started again when Irma came, because the hurricane destroyed the bar, it destroyed the kitchen. So we didn't have anything we couldn't warm anything, we couldn't prepare anything. We even made a tea and did a hot water back in the kitchen. So we brought everything, transported it back to town from Cold Bay. We didn't have nothing physical. We didn't have gas. We just had electricity, and that was it. So it felt like you were starting all over again. Only this time was more difficult because now you have to rearrange the place. You have to take up all the old stuff, all the fridge and stove. Everything was destroyed. That was thrown out. Everything had to be replaced. You see? And then you had to reorganize it. You had to replan it. And I would say, at first it looked like an undaunting job, like, how am I going to do this? But once we started to rebuild, you really see how you could expand instead of being in despair. You see where you could grow instead of saying, oh my God, look all that I lost. And that is true saving. That is not taking your money and buying a fancy car. Because my car was, I mostly in a working van. So it wasn't a matter of saying, I have this beautiful fancy car. No, I always have my work car. You know, it's a matter of saving all the time. And I think once people do that, it is difficult, but it won't be as difficult if you have that cushion there along the way. So when things are good, you save because it's the business money, you save. And if you want to buy a car personal for you, you buy it out of your personal money for your personal enjoyment, which I never find was necessary.
I'm just intrigued. I see Emilio, he's nodding, you know, I think he's in a court. Emilio, what are you thinking there?
No, I'm just listening to, the experiences of the small business, because the thing is, a lot of people think that big corporations or whatever are really maintaining St. Martin. But when I saw the numbers, you'll be surprised how many small and medium and entrepreneurs or whatever are the backbone of St. Martin. And they're the ones that actually contribute to most of the wage tax, the turnover tax and so forth. Not some of these big so-called conglomerates to be selling on the island. And when you see the numbers and you see for yourself, you realize that oftentimes you say give these people a tax break or whatever, but if you look at the top 10 who contribute into the economy, it's usually not even these big businesses. It's usually the small and medium sized businesses. So and also she have a passion, huh?
Yes.
You don't have a passion. That's why one of my businesses is called Passion 2, because it comes from my first passion is flying, and my next passion is actually financial literacy, financial training, or whatever. And if I didn't have that passion, I wouldn't basically be trying to teach people. So I think that because of the passion is there, when hard times come, it sustains you. It keeps you going forward. If that passion burns out, trust me, she wouldn't have continued doing what she was doing.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And she mentioned, Betty, you mentioned just now I mean, we're at prep on time already, but Betty, you mentioned just now how you were affected by Hurricane Irma. The physical structure of the business was affected, and because she saved, I'm really, really stressing on the word save. I'm had a proper scheme of money management, not just saving, but managing the money good good. And even if you don't know how to, I want persons to know that there are people in our community that we can go to. Calmera is one of them. Betty is one of them. We have so many persons in our community who can assist us, teach us the little ropes, you know what I mean? But from Hurricane Irma, the physical structure of Chica's Bistro was destroyed. Now, not hurricane, but a pandemic hit. The physical structure is intact, but the whole business operation had to again be shifted. And again, Betty, you can say it, you can talk to us about that as well. You went right back again to where you started from 20 something years ago in the height of the pandemic.
The internet went down for a minute, so I didn't really get exactly what you were saying.
Okay, no, I was saying from Hurricane Irma, your physical structure at the restaurant was damaged, at Chica's Bistro was damaged. And then you had to reinvent yourself again. And here it is in the height of COVID. The physical structure is intact, but again, because of the lockdown and everything, you again had to not even reinvent yourself, go right back to how things were 20 something years ago when you started. How was that for you, having to do that again? And learning
not how was, Keoma, not how was, how is, because it is still present. You know, I'm still going through it, because one of the things that we have to remember, no matter what we go through, whether that we're small, there's certain expenses like SUV, AORB, is still there. Every month that still follows you. So you still is conscious, even though you're not making it as you used to, and it's almost sometimes below 1/3. But you know that every month that's right there waiting on you. And even if when things start to look a little good, you get those letters coming in the back. So this is the thing that keeps your mind always worrying, and you're thinking, okay, I don't want a month pass that I don't pay STB, because You still have your workers, even if you don't have all of them, but you still have them, and these are things that still have to be paid. So you're pinching pennies and hoping that, hey, maybe December might be it, and you're counting on your fingers that you're able to not owe the government and not owe back these amounts of back. These are bills that's going to just bring you down at night when you go home. You think about it, and because I've been always disciplined, I never go to Front Street browsing unless I really need something. And ain't much on Front Street that I want to buy. Ain't much on Back Street unless I need it. Because if you splurge on things on Front Street and on Back Street, you don't need it. Here now you're looking at the physical things in your house, but you owe all of this back tax and you can't pay it. But if you leave your money where it is, you can chip along the way. And if you can't pay it all, you can pay half, and you're still not that bad into it. With COVID, you can't say, by October, at least we know we're coming out. No, you can't, because you just come out of the hurricane. You can't say, November, hey, I know how they're going to have 4 ships. We're going to have people back and forth. This time, I'm left to wondering. I'm reading, I'm checking the news, I'm listening. I am looking at all the people in the state that have lost their jobs, the places that have been closed, and I know that this ain't bouncing back as quickly and as easily as we would want it to pick back up. So reinventing this time, Keoma, I am still I'm still looking for answers, and the answers really in there. It's not there.
Oh my God, this is.
So there is nothing I can say to anyone who will think about opening now. I wouldn't say anything because I feel like I'm opening again. I feel like I'm opening something new. I'm thinking all the time, what else can I do? How can I do it? Going back up on the road and hustling out there, no, that's not the answer this time either. So yes, I have an open question for myself. Maybe in another time, in another program, when you come back up, I can say to you, remember, Keoma, we were talking about this in the pandemic 2 years ago. I'm hoping I'm going to be still around 2 years, two years um, more. I'm thinking that, but that'll be for another program. With this pandemic now, and it's truthful. You have to read a lot. You got to look at the news. You got to listen. You got to look at the trends. If you look out in the south, you see how much potatoes they're throwing on the ground, how much chickens that they're killing, how much pigs because they have nobody to deliver to. So you're looking and seeing that these are the farmers that are going bankrupt. These are the places that are producing food. They are going bankrupt. And you're looking at the other thing is food distribution. We import everything, and I'm looking quite clearly to see how that's going to affect us down the road. We import all our food. So it's not just one thing that you think about. You look at those farmers and what they're doing with their food, and you're wondering, will it affect us eventually? So that's it.
Emilio, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so it's a pity that I didn't get through my presentation because my presentation would have addressed some of those concerns that she had. The concepts of complementary currency and parallel currencies. I sent you the link so you got a chance to review it.
Yeah.
On my today's program on 98.1, I will actually show that video to see it and touch base on how we can be more resilient in this type of environment. At the end of the day, it all boils back to, again, the money aspect. People lost jobs, they don't have any money. There are certain things that governments can do that are far outside of what they know today. And of course, you got exposed to it. But most leaders and governments and even central bankers, I would say, in St. Martin, probably never got exposed to it. It's not like natural knowledge that everyone would know. I never got it in school. Like I said, I learned a lot of stuff outside of school. And so this type of stuff that I'm going to show on my program today as well will give people that insight to also think outside the box how you can resolve certain problems.
Lawrence Bash, he's in Guyana. He said, "This is what I told my household, that that in my village, you see a lot of persons have their little shack stand, their little shack snack stand, and small shops. And small shops are they really doing business or just filling one hole with the next? It makes me wonder if they really count every cent and dollar and place it in the correct formats. You hear that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I probably have
Yeah.
to read it again because in where in which it's written.
Mm.
This is what I told my household, that in my village you see a lot of persons have their little snack stand, like the small little snack stand selling snacks, and small shops. Are they really doing business or just filling one hole with the next? It makes me wonder if they really count every cent and dollar and place it in the correct formats.
I don't, for most small businesses, especially persons who have never, don't have exposure to administration, even basic administration, and how to, and when I went to study as well, there was something called management and cost accounting.
Mm-hmm,
Why that was so important is actually shows you how do you put a cost to your product, and then
mm-hmm,
you mark it up or whatever. But how do you calculate that? And how do you allocate that cost? It's not it's something that someone would know just like that. It's something you have to like kind of study it and to
mm-hmm,
understand. You know what I mean? And those people are just persons who are entrepreneurs, but they don't have the administrative insight. And because of the tax implication and so forth, you have to have that administrative insight. You don't have to be to the T detail enough, but it
mm-hmm,
has to be sufficient enough to give you an idea of what's happening. For example, I built a little small Excel system for my mechanic. You have a small sole proprietorship business, and by him just plugging in and stuff like that, he can see where he's at. He can see I order parts and so forth. This is an expense, my income for it or whatever. So he know he can't overspend because he can see at a glance how he's doing and what he's doing. He also have staff to pay as well. So by him having this knowledge, that's just one step in the right direction.
mm-hmm,
Of course, now what Betty says, Betty is doing everything right, but she said it herself. You have employees to still pay if you're not terminating them. You have those are fixed expenses, and
mm-hmm,
every time you have fixed expenses, and there's no way to get rid of them in a how we say a medical, not a medical, but let's say in a right manner, of course you're gonna have to deal with that, and that's not something easy for a small business to deal with, especially if they didn't have never built up a buffer. But even when you built up buffers, how long can your buffer go?
What is buffers for our viewers? What is
Buffers,
buffer?
yeah, buffers are money you put aside for emergency situations or to cover certain expenditures in the future. So, for example, let's say you have a boat
Mm-hmm,
and your boat is like a ferry to travel back and forth. Now
mm-hmm,
every let's say 2 to 3 years that boat have to come out of the water and completely scrape off the barnacles or whatever and so forth. So that's a big cost in the future. But if you don't spread it out over time, that would because it would seem like a savings, but it's actually not a savings. It's actually allocating for the future that when it comes, that you have that money available. You don't want to wait until it happens that you have to do it and the money's not there. As you have to borrow the money, and then in a crisis, you might not have sufficient backing to get that loan. But if you have that savings put aside, you don't necessarily have to go by a bank. You probably could go by the bank for the difference that you're lacking. But if you have a buffer on your own already, you're in a better position with the bank, of course, to get a difference and so forth. So it's about planning ahead.
which I do understand that, but let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Betty mentioned she herself, as a small business for 20 something years, has questions that she doesn't know what's going to happen. Would you advise, based on the fact that we do not know what will happen, would you advise persons for to take advantage of small business loans? Because you may have loans where you still have to pay it back. Would you advise persons who are laid off and they want to start a small something something to engage in taking small loans? How would you
No, the problem you have with that is, and this is where leadership have to play the role.
leadership
Um,
government?
Right. Because there's no, how to say now, there's no direction to some extent to say, okay, if there's no more tourists coming because of the pandemic and the pandemic escalates and we have to go into a second wave, what do we do as a society? And that's the major problem. That's what I'm talking about, resilience versus, so they have the diversification aspect versus specialization. Now, our whole thing had to do with persons coming to the island for us to practically survive.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have a robust economy on its own, without necessarily having people coming in, that's what you're talking about resilience. It
Mm-hmm.
means then that because our economy have its own internal mechanism of dynamics, the added outside exposure is just icing on the cake. But we always had that dynamics because let's say we had the people farming food, we have our renewable energy going, we have the creation of complementary currencies. Because the beauty about complementary currencies, you don't get the effect of the dollar guild peg. Because what happens now, people say, why don't you just create guilds to simulate the economy? The problem is when you are pegged to a dollar, like how we are pegged, if you create additional 1.79 gila, you have to get additional dollar to back it. And that's our problem. And where that dollar is going to come from if you don't have dollars coming in for because of tourism. So you have to kind of decouple from that and go to something called complementary currencies, which we're going to be talking about in the program, and why that's so important, and also becoming more robust in terms of trying to produce things locally. Because, like I said, if you have like a 40%, 50% local community with money, that's why money is about community at the end of the day. That's why barter back in the day was so important, because whatever we produce, if we produce too much of it, we go to the neighbor and we exchange and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that is not a big, vibrant part of your economy, that means you're totally reliant on overseas, and we know realizing more and more that's becoming a big problem globally.
Mm-hmm. I, I wonder, because again, the manner in which we manage our finances, but then again, too, so many of us do not even work we work for minimum wage. So many of us, our expenses exceeds a lot of times what our salary really is. If you have to look at it in St. Martin, for sure, we know the real estate values for even renting a home is so high. If you can get a home for 500 US dollars, run with it fast, grab it. But when someone has to look at renting a home for 500 US dollars or 600, which we consider to be a good deal, and they're working for minimum wage, how do we even offset that in a regular economy and now in COVID? How do we even begin to do that?
Okay, so then it's a loaded question. I can answer it, but it would probably take a whole day to answer that.
Okay.
But you need to understand, yeah, you need to understand that we can always blame the leadership, right? But that doesn't help, because at the end of the day, why did the real estate, for example, went through the roof? Why do you think that's the case? At the top of your head?
Oh, sorry. That's me drinking water.
Yeah.
Um, can you ask again? Why do I think?
Why do you think? Because there's a number of things that cause cost of living to go up. That is, of course, and usually it's the basics, huh? Housing,
Mm-hmm,
food,
mm-hmm,
energy. Those are the main three things that usually have the cost of living to go to the roof. And that's again food, housing, and energy.
mm-hmm,
And for the most part, these things was very expensive. In generally speaking, housing is very expensive, food is very expensive, as well as in some cases energy as well.
mm-hmm,
Okay. Now, if you understand what makes these things very expensive, you could kind of get an understanding of why St. Martin is the way it is. Because why did real estate get very expensive? Why do you think?
should I say the fact that we focus on tourism? Should I say that? Uh,
Hmm. Okay, so let's say now I come from the United States where I can get a yeah, I come from the United States and I have access to cheap money, which
mm,
most Americans do. So I
mm,
can get a loan at let's say 3%, and I bring that money here, and someone but selling the land originally to a local for let's say $30, and I tell them no, I'm going to give you 100,000.
it
What
will
happens to the price?
it will go up because of foreign money, foreign investors.
Right. So that's one of the problems that government should have foreseen as well. Okay. If you can have that happening, and then you also have an influx of persons coming to work here, and that oversupply of person also pushes down the labor
Yeah.
wage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you have foreign investors coming out, and at the same time pushing up your basics up to the roof. So you're getting a immediate imbalance. So if you
Mm-hmm.
don't if you don't, as a government, balance this in such a way, you always would allow the cost of living to go up. And you will always tell a government is very efficient is when they actually allow the cost of living to go down. I've never seen much governments able to achieve that. And that's to show you that the most governments don't do the right thing. You see what I'm saying? So that's one dynamics. Another dynamics is energy. If you're totally relying on oil prices and so forth, so at GB in this case, we have the generators. One of those generators are very expensive, and most of the time you have to take GB would have to take a bond or a loan to basically fund that. And usually that loan is not even usually sourced locally, it's sourced overseas. That means the interest now going to flow back out. That's a cost to GB, which have to be factored into the price of energy. Then you have the energy costs that has to also be factored in the price and so forth. So all these things you have to realize that also cause the cost of living to go up. We in St. Martin with the beautiful sun, the wind, or whatever, we should have already done moved away for the most part away from fossil fuel. As in the long run, our renewable energy, like if you see what Sabre and Stacia did,
Solar energy.
over time, the cost of living going to be pushed down, actually, not up. You see what I'm saying? Also, if you look at the price of food, if the supply chain in America and China get disruptive, they're going to be always be more demand than supply. So we're going to be the last persons in the chain that they're going to have to get penalized with high costs because they have to be shipped. They have to be shipped to us. So that also causes the cost of living to go up. So by knowing all these things, you should have put certain things in place to mitigate all these things. You don't wait until, and we know there's always economic cycles, booms and busts. We always know that. And it always comes around every 10 to 20 years. So a government should, knowing this, should have already then used tourism. When in the boom, you use tourism as the medium to extract the foreign reserve to become more resilient. See? So some people said tourism was a one pillar. Yes, but it should have been used to get to the objective that you really needed to do.
Yeah.
And then later on, you could have just use it now to go high end because you already have most of the activity happening locally. But we keep forcing the tourism thing, not developing your country to become self-sustainable. So in an economic shock, you're basically in trouble.
This is a whole nother gap. This is a whole nother gap. This is a whole nother gap. Let me ask Betty, Betty, you, we, right now, to add to complement what Emilio said, right? You're still watching to see what's happening and you don't know what's going to happen, but you have a staff. And I personally know over the course of the years how dedicated you were, and you have been rather, to making sure you select the right staff members. Because I watch you like a hawk when it comes to the staff. She's watching everything, the manner in which they execute their customer service. She watches every single thing. I stay on the sidelines and I watch her. But you now have a dedicated staff. You have Tasha and you have, I forgot the other girl's name, right? The Jamaican. Katura. You have those girls there, and I know they're there for what? Way over 5 years they're there.
Yes,
right?
yes.
10 years they're there. How would you do it now in this uncertainty?
Well, that's a question. I don't have the answer. I have two other staff in the kitchen too that's been there longer than the staff that's here. So I have like 5 right now, and I have more, but there's no answer. There's really no answer right now. You go home every day, you look around, you hope the numbers go down, you hope that things bounce back the way it was. But in reality, I know the truth is not bouncing back the way it was. It's not happening just like that. It's going to take time. You look, you read for the crews, you understand. They keep pushing back the date, so you understand that they're not coming right now. And if they do come, it's not going to be like before. And even who are coming on the boats, a lot of them has lost their jobs. There's elections coming up. People are not going to just travel. There's just a whole lot of unknowns this time. Like I said, I've never had this before. There is no answer. I just get up every day and trust. But I don't have any answers.
Betty, question: Who your before the COVID, your clientele was mainly what? If you split it between locals, tourists, or whatever, how much locals you think versus how much tourists?
But 3/4 of locals, whether they're from St. Martin, St. Kitts, Nevis, Anguilla, Sabre Station.
The region.
Yes, regional.
So in other words, what I'm trying to get at, so if there's regional, the regional can't come here either. So if I have to say from St. Martin, people who are living here in St. Martin, how much of those are your clientele, you would say, roughly?
I would say about one third.
One third. Yeah.
Yeah.
It means you have a lot that's actually depending on outside, from regionally as
Yes.
Yeah.
tourism. Yeah, that's a problem.
Yes.
That's a problem.
So
Okay,
this is
so
why we close on Saturday, because
yeah.
there's nobody on back street.
And then you also have the problem that the I would say the restaurant business is kind of semi-saturated. So if yours was a
No.
one third, that means if more of them are allowed to open, it's actually then people have more choices.
Yeah.
So that one third probably will go down to less than one third. So that's
Right
another
now,
problem.
yes.
Yeah. Do you have I'm assuming since you have regional and also tourists, you ever try to do like a cooking channel on YouTube? Because you know YouTube do pay you to do that type of thing as well.
It's
That's
in the
like
works.
yeah,
It's
that's
in
the
the works.
idea.
This actually talking here on Zoom is practice, because even though I'm making preparation, but I keep thinking, how are you going to be on this on camera? How are you
People
going
are
to
doing
fix
it.
it? How you going?
People are doing
So
it and making money, huh? That's one. And number two, I've also seen some people did like Kindle cookbook,
Mm,
Kindle cookbook, and they're making crazy money on Kindle.
mm,
yes, I'm working on it. Believe me, but sometimes you have this. You talk in your head. You look at
Mhm,
your kitchen. I have the kitchen and everything prepared for
mhm,
this. I put shelves. I put everything is prepared. And I keep thinking, okay, you got to start this. You got to be good with your recipes. You got to fine tune your recipes. So I'm
mhm.
working on it. And
Okay.
that's what I said. Talking now with you all is like practice, like, because you have to practice looking in the
Yeah, you
camera,
have
look in
to.
the
That's
mirror,
true. That's true.
talking to yourself in the
That's
mirror,
true.
see how
That's
you look. It's a
yeah.
process.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
it's true. But Betty and Emilio, what I really admire across the board is the constant transition, because now you all are now talking about another transition for Betty, from physical structures onto the digital space, online space, and how you can capitalize on the resources that exist. So this is what I really want persons to really realize. I see here Nicolette Marcy Calendar Best. She commented, and I know Marcy, after Hurricane Irma, well, before she was a manager at Robbie's Lottery. The Hurricane Irma destroyed the business, and she decided to stay at home and make Guyanese pastries and snacks. Several times a week, she announced her menu, and she goes around delivering stuff, little snackets, and she built from there. And from since Irma to now, her husband, and her daughter have been doing it from home. So there's so many ways of how we can reinvent ourselves and build our clientele. Our clientele may not be expansive to every person, but we know who our people are, So again, for time, you all see how quickly it goes and how intriguing it is. It really goes really, really quickly. But I want to really thank each and every one of you, for both of you, for being here, taking time out. Um, Emilio, in closing, what would you want our viewers to know? What are takeaways first, and how can we support you? Because I know you said you're going digital as well. Takeaways from all of this, and how can we support you moving forward as a community?
Well, I would say if you look at the world dynamics when it comes to the money system and so forth, all throughout the whole globe is in trouble. The system was doomed to fail anyhow, because if you study the history and all through history, you always notice that different money systems always pop up. The time for the dollar has come to practically almost an end, you can say. What pops up in the place of the dollar, we don't know as yet. We know that there's other systems out there so far, like cryptocurrencies, and the American is talking about a digital dollar and so forth. So this is gonna come, and but in that transition, though, there probably will be a lot of suffering. So I don't think the hardship has the hardship is gonna get worse, I believe, before it gets better. So this is something that you have to know, and therefore you really have to become more creative. You have to become even more knowledgeable of where your money is, where you want to go, more resilient in terms of, I've seen a lot of people out there planting now, which is something I've never seen before, which is amazing.
Mhm.
People doing the backyard gardening and so forth.
Mhm.
digital platforms and so forth. So you might have to retrain yourself to get out there because most people are gonna be home and so forth. I think is even though it's a hardship, it's an opportunity to also to remake yourself as hard as it is. But I think if you're in a position and be more resilient and also maintain the how you say that the duration or whatever, it might be a beautiful transition for you. For some, it might not be, but it depends on the viability and the resilience of that person to see, how it's going to be in the future. I'm looking forward to the future because I already known that the financial system would have failed. COVID just brought it a bit quicker, so I already had put certain things in place for that. And I also know that depending on how the transition comes out, I want to be there in that time with the with the new economy, so to speak, will be birthed, and hopefully I can be part of that new economy and do things a bit different. So for now, I wouldn't say there's doom and gloom, but I think there's some hope. Just keep abreast of what's happening out there and understand the times. That's all I can say.
Mm. I will be contacting you, hanging out a little bit. So this economics talk and the finances and understanding even more, not just money, but how the system works financially. We may hang out a little bit because it needs to rub off on me. I really need to be even more in depth, embedded with this layer by layer. How can we support you, Emilia, moving forward? What are you doing? Say you're going digital. How can we support you on what you do?
Well, there's some good news. I don't want to spill the beans on the Minister of Finance, but there's some good news coming forward for small, medium enterprises coming out.
In St.
Um,
Martin?
St. Martin, correct. So I always tell people, make sure start getting your business plans ready and so forth because there are going to be some interesting things happening. I'll leave him do the honors, of course. I don't want to bust the pot. So be ready for that. I will be there to help support those who want to have assistance with business planning and so forth. But at my platform, I'm going to hopefully go mainly online.
Okay.
um, I might decide to get a have a party bus. I might get a financial bus
Mm,
to assist persons because then sometimes people don't always want to meet online. They want to meet in person and so forth. So the financial bus would be sort of my office space where I can move around. I can come to you. I can meet you and so forth. And so that's how people will be able to help support me by taking my advice because I'm also an advisor. I'm also a financial coach.
okay.
In these times and the opportunity that's coming, you don't want to mess it up because we
Hmm.
had an opportunity in the past that was messed up with a small business development or whatever.
Hmm.
And this new opportunity, I would advise people that when it comes around, you don't want to mess this up. It's going to be a beautiful opportunity, and so I would be here to help support you to make sure that you make it. So that would be my role.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Let's go to Betty because this is us signing out. Betty, in closing, what are your closing remarks? There's so much we can say, but what are your closing remarks? What would you want our viewers all across the Caribbean who are viewing or who would view this live after? I have a network of persons who are in to the African continent, to the Asian continent. The time difference plays a role right now because a lot of times we're like 9.5 hours ahead, but they always look at the replay, right? Betty, in closing, what would you say to our viewers based on your experience and how can we support you? We know Chica's Bistro exists. Let us know in closing where you are, where you're located, what your opening hours are, so we can be there to support you.
We are located in Phillipsburg on Back Street, Chica's Bistro. We are open from 7:30 in the morning for breakfast, and we are open until 3 for lunch. And we have some more plans coming in, delivery from Chica's Bistro, but we also have a lot of healthy packaged foods coming out also, which is more soul Caribbean vegan dishes. And that's what we're working on the moment. So I'm going to have a Facebook page. You can support Chica's Foods, and that's going to be coming out most probably in September to October. Whether pandemic's here, yes or no, I am looking forward to see the changes. It is a little scary. You're always scared with the unknown. But I think it's also exciting to see what difference we're going to meet up, what new things is going to come from this COVID. Because no matter how down something is, eventually you're going to see a new beginning. I'm looking for the new beginning. I'm very excited to see what it is. Scary, but exciting.
But that is it. It's scary, as you said, but it's exciting. But what is key in the creation of the new beginning is for us to understand that we are the creators. We are the one who have the pen in our hands. We are the creators. So whatever it is, we get up every day and decide to do for that day. Whatever our intentions are, the intention is what we will put into practice, and that will become the new beginning. So the new beginning is right now. The new beginning is us having this conversation. The new beginning is us imparting this knowledge and these experiences to our viewers, or for anyone who view and will take the lessons or the teachings that they have here and transport that into to someone else. So we are the catalyst for the new beginning. And this is what we are doing right now. We are birthing new opportunities and allowing persons to be even more fully equipped as they go along with the right tools, the right knowledge as we go along. Because Betty, you were able to share your transition from 1995 and before now, and how roller coaster that was. But through resiliency, having a desire, a passion is what allow you to remain on the surface and continue to rise rather than going below water. Emilio, you're the same thing. People, what you do, Emilio, what is necessary for every layer of our society, every layer of existing, personal, business, every layer. But we tend to think, oh, accounting is boring. I mean, I was once one of that. I swear to God, I only wanted to just balance my own money. But here it is now. There's such a dire need for us to fully understand what our money really is and how we're supposed to spend that money. How are we supposed to really invest that money? So I know for sure, and our viewers find value in our GAF today. And I hope that you all find value in sharing your knowledge and your experiences with me and our viewers. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you so much for the things you do and things you continue to do. And we'll talk again. Let me just say, let me just, you can mute your mics if you don't mind. Hold on for me. I know, Emilio, you have to go, right? Oh, for persons who are viewing on St. Martin 98.1 FM, you can catch Emilio right now at 6 p.m. at 98.1 FM, where he will continue to speak on finances. And let me mention this also. I will be, well, Gyhaffin will be streaming also very soon on 98.1 Pearl FM twice a week. Yeah. So shout out to Ralph Cantav, who is now a part of the management of 98.1. So seeing that today is our 8th episode, we'll be doing like a recap from our first episode of agriculture, self-care, education, right up until today, right? So we're still discussing the technicalities, but look out for that. Today's Gyhaffin has been brought to you with not only Emilio and Betty, but also Tizan. Tizan is located, I don't remember the exact address, but Tizan is located in Simpson Bay. And whatever it is you need to in terms of natural teas and natural healings, go to Tizan, contact Tashina Maku. She's on Facebook. You can reach out to her. Today's episode is brought to us by Tizan. Also, Stacey and Taylor of Stacey and Taylor Studio. My makeup, my attire was all put together by Stacey Ann. And I really find I take pride and a very much of a proud person to showcase, not, I don't want to say local, but we are so gifted, you know, and as Emilio highlighted, we are now planting, you know, and that goes right back to what Tizan is doing as well, going back to that natural form of living. And to my sister, my sister who assists me with a technical aspect, you know, whenever something happened, I'm sure you all heard Kishana, that's my sister. So thank you so much for persons who have been viewing us all the time. Thank you so much, guys. And until next week, bye-bye. Okay, let me see. This is always my thing. This is always my thing. Let me go right back to this. My hands are moving too fast, people. It's moving too fast.
Okay, off the air.
No, like I'm trying to select it, but I'm just stranded here. 1 minute. I swear I'm pressing this thing, but it's not coming up. My here, huh? Yeah, I'm trying to get off. See, here go my sister.